Hey friends, welcome to the Tech Unlock podcast. I'm so glad you're here. This show aims to demystify tech careers and diversify the tech industry by giving you the keys to unlock your successful tech careers. I'm your host, Grace McJones. Let's jump right in. Hey everyone, glad you can join me on this episode of the Tech Unlock podcast. I am so excited to have Veni Kunche on the podcast. We met via Twitter, and usually when I start the show, I love telling people how I met people because it's just so interesting how you're able to connect with people online and hear their stories. And she's a software engineer turned startup founder, and today I am really thrilled to dive into her story. So welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm doing good.
Awesome. And, I wanted to start off with a tweet that you recently tweeted to kind of give a context of what we're going to talk about today. And you said in your tweet, I love to build and code. I don't like arguing over the tech I use, working unreasonable hours, fighting for equal pay and not getting it, not having access to roles because of the way I look. I made my own path to stay in tech, but I shouldn't have had to. I think that is such a powerful message and such a transparent message or a tweet, because a lot of people struggle to get into tech. And then when they do get into tech, either as underrepresented minority, there's a lot of obstacles that it face. And I feel like all those things you highlighted, I see that all the time on Twitter, people going back and forth like, okay, what tool do you use? What programming language do you use? And it's just like, okay, like all this stuff really doesn't matter. So kind of paint the picture for us of when you decided to leave your traditional path as an engineer, because you were an engineer for about 15 years, to creating the career that you wanted. And it sounds like it wasn't something you were hoping to do. You were just kind of like, I have to do my own thing now. So what happened?
So as you mentioned, I've been a software engineer for 15 years, and it was not a straight path, I guess. So I studied computer science in college, and after I graduated, I was taught that okay, I studied, I got good grades, I'm gonna apply, I'm gonna get a job. That's kind of what my assumption was. But it honestly took me almost 2 years to get my first full-time job with benefits and everything. I had to do a lot of freelancing, volunteering to get experience to get my first job. So that was kind of like my first big hurdle getting into tech. Just the entering was so hard. And I always thought it was me, I'm doing something wrong. So let me fix myself. I'll do this. And then, I did that. And then I, had a good job. It was fine. And then I decided that I'm going to, do master's. Even after my master's, I thought, I was adding credentials to my, to myself. But after I did my master's, the reason I did my master's was I was trying to get into data science. And as I started applying to jobs, the same thing happened again. People were like, oh, you just have a master's, you need a PhD for this field. Or they treated me like I was just fresh out of college. Like they treated me like an undergrad. They were offering me pay, they were offering me positions like as though I didn't have previous experience. Wow. So that's another thing that happened. And eventually I did get a job, ended up in a startup, which is very, very toxic, like really long hours. Always felt like what I did was enough, not supportive at all. And that led me to another job. So my path was just like, even though it was 15 years, I pretty much switched 2 to 3 years. Every 2 to 3 years I switched. And I still live in the Midwest too. So opportunities are less, way, way less diverse. Throughout my career, I was either the only woman or the only person of color in all of my companies. That's just what felt normal. That was my normal.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought that's what I thought tech was. And then at a point I was like, okay, I'm kind of like done with this. I think I'm kind of tired of fighting internally. So I thought, what if I started a business? And I had no plans of doing that, but I started investigating it. And I actually took some time off to figure out if I can actually do it. And that's kind of, so right now I'm kind of, using the experience, my own personal experience, I'm trying to tackle the issues in tech. So yeah.
Yeah, it's, what you said is something that a lot of women or minorities have also brought up in terms of, being the only woman, the only Black woman or a person of color, either in the classes or in their jobs. And it's weird how that is normalized. And it's like, that shouldn't be normal.
Mhm.
And, for you being able to say like, okay, this is not something that I enjoy or want to be normal in sense of like representation, right? And deciding to change it. A lot of people are like, oh, it's not my problem. Like, you know what I mean? Like somebody else can fix it. But you started, before you started Diversify Tech, you started with Code with Veni, right? And so how did that help you in terms of when you did the start, when you did decide to start, Diversify Tech, how did that experience help you to gather all the information, know what to do when you started that newsletter?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, like, I had no intention of starting a business. And then when I decided I wanted to, I didn't know what to focus on. I was like looking for problems to solve.
Mm,
And I wasn't sure what that was. And as I was trying to figure that out, I was volunteering for Women Who Code. I was talking to a lot of women at that time. So at that time, we had just moved to DC, and which was completely different experience from the Midwest. It was the first time I was like, oh, there are more people like me. I finally
yeah.
met other people like me. And as I volunteered, and one of the things I did was I would have Hangouts, Google Hangouts with women. I would just say, here's some office hours, you're free to sign up. And I was surprised at how many people did take me up on it. I spoke to people in DC, in the US, even outside the US. I talked to a lot of people. And the common theme was similar to me. A lot of women felt alone. They
Mm,
all thought that I'm the only one doing this. I have no support. And so they were just thrilled to just talk to another person who looked like them.
wow.
And after that, the other common theme was there was a lot of doubt because they were also like they also faced a lot of hurdles, so they kept thinking they're doing something wrong, so they just kept asking me like, what can I do, what should I do, and I gave as much advice I could, but talking to all of these women, I realized that it shouldn't be all on us. The tech industry should change to accommodate all of us. So that kind of put the idea in my head that I should do something, but I didn't know what yet. But as I talked to more and more people, I realized, okay, first, people don't know about the opportunities that are there. Especially if you're alone, you don't have a network. Like me, like I was in the Midwest, I didn't know very many tech people. I didn't know people who looked like me. So if there were events happening, if there were job opportunities, like I just didn't know about them. So that's what I started doing. I was like, I'm going to start simple. If you don't have a network, I'll sort of become your network. Kind of the newsletter is sort of your network, and you can find out events, scholarships, things like that through it. So that's kind of how the idea formed.
Wow, that's amazing. And you've built, not just a network and not just a newsletter, but a huge community, right? A lot of people are able to say, hey, like I'm gonna go on your website to be able to look for like jobs, scholarships, events that are happening, and you're like opening up a new world of things that might seem hidden. You're giving accessibility, like, hey, like here's how you can start. And I think that's one of the hardest things. People are like, okay, where do I start? Where do I go? And then even as an underrepresented minority, you're just like, okay, is this going to be a place where I will be, felt welcome or feel, like I can be myself? And I think that you do a good job in curating what you share on your website in terms of the jobs, the scholarships, the event, which I know takes a lot of work and a lot of vetting. So, like, what has been the hardest part of building a community-based startup?
Yeah. The hardest part has been kind of balancing all of the different elements for it. For example, I have one community which is underrepresented people in tech,
Mm-hmm.
and they're my priority. I'm trying to give them access and all of that stuff. And then I also have another community which is actually like tech leaders, recruiters who are trying to connect with us. But at the same time, not all of them. So they're also my customers, like recruiters, engineers, they're my customers. But not all customers are right for us
Mm.
because they haven't done the work. They don't actually know what diversity, like what inclusion means. They're not quite sure, but they think that if I just post a job, I'm gonna attract candidates, and that's kind of it. So not all customers are the right customers for our community. So I have to do a lot of vetting behind the scenes, and sometimes during the vetting, I also have to educate the customers on like, this isn't the right approach. Think of it a different way, or things like that. And the other part is, me. I'm trying to be the bridge between, people who are given the opportunities and people who are looking for opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's right now I'm a solo person. I'm doing most of this by myself, so I have to make it sustainable. And one of the things with tech startup culture is everybody says hustle, hustle, hustle.
Right.
And honestly, like I can't. I'm at an age where I cannot work overnights. I'm a mom. Like my kid expects me to take care of her. When she wakes up in the morning, right? And all
Yeah.
these other criteria. So I have to balance both of these communities, and the work I have to put in, the hours I have to put in. So I have to be very, very conscious about how I'm doing it. Like I don't want to grow too fast, then I won't be able to handle it.
Mm.
I don't want to grow too slow, then the customers won't be happy, or I'm not giving the right opportunities to underrepresented people in tech. So it's like a balancing act between the three of us, sort of. Yeah, so that's kind of hard. But as time goes on, I'm learning more and more on how to balance everything. Yeah, that's the hardest part about it.
Yeah, I think that's such an honest, answer because, some people might see what you're doing and be like, oh, like that looks easy or that looks, really good. Like I want to do something like that. And it's like, actually, it's a lot of work. We're not discouraging anyone, but know that it is a lot of work and dedication and commitment. And so you've talked about whenever you have this customers, either hiring managers, recruiters, business leaders,
Mhm.
come to post something on your job post board, which is incredible that you have it. What are common mistakes that they make? What are some things that maybe you might have to educate them on when trying to hire underrepresented people?
Yeah, I think the first mistake I see is that they haven't done the internal work, so they're not actually ready for us.
Mm.
So that's a big thing that I see. For example, recently a nonprofit came and posted a job and had a great mission. It was for human rights, climate change, everything seemed awesome. And they also had people of color, so I asked for demographics when the company posted a job. So everything looked great. But then I was, okay, let me just double check. I went on Glassdoor, and the most recent review for them, it was just in like May of 2020, somebody said the CTO is super racist and a sexist.
Whoa.
That was like just a few months back, right? I was like, okay,
Mm.
I'm sorry. So I basically went back and said, I'm sorry, I can't accept this. It looks like I pointed them to the Glassdoor review and said, it looks like you have some work to do internally. I never heard back. But sometimes it's, I think that's kind of part of it. I'm sort of
Mm-hmm.
leading them in that way that, okay, I can't help you right now. And even if you are trying to attract underrepresented people in tech, other people will do the same thing. So if you don't do the work internally, like if you have people who are, racist and things like that, if you don't fix that culture, like don't invite us, like
Mm.
because it's going to be a hard environment for us. So
Yeah.
that's the biggest one I keep having to face, because people think first we'll attract candidates that'll make us diverse. That's what they think. But the thing is, you have to work on yourself first before you invite us,
Yes.
because even if we come, we'll soon realize that the environment is actually not good for us, and
We'll
we
find
will.
out.
Yeah. And then the other thing is, the other mistake I see is companies are not really willing to change. So that's because for example, they post a job description. It's a certain way. That's how they've always done it. So that's exactly what they'll come and post on my job board. However, like research shows that, the way the words you use, the way you communicate makes a difference on who applies or not. So if you have like a long list of requirements, most likely underrepresented people in tech will not apply because they'll look at it and say, okay, I do not meet all of these requirements, so I'm not going to apply. Whereas overrepresented people tend to be like, oh, it's okay, I don't meet all these requirements, I'm going to apply anyway. So some recruiters and hiring managers understand this, some don't. So sometimes it's just a matter of me saying, hey, maybe change this. And a lot of times people listen. But sometimes people are like, this is what it is, kind of. So then I can't do much.
Right.
You're not willing to change. I can't do much. So companies have to realize that if you, like, they can't keep doing the same thing over and over again and expect different results, right? You have to change how you're doing things. And the third thing I've noticed is that, so since June, my job board has become popular, and it's amazing. But at the same time, what I noticed that all the job postings I was getting were like VPs and seniors and all of that. And I was like, okay, I know there are, senior level people in my community, but not all of them like that. So I had to like convey the message to people before they posted the job that, please post a mix of levels. So one of the things what they're doing, what I think companies are not realizing, is that they're targeting only the very, very high level positions, but it's hard to fill those positions because, people who are senior like me, we've had a lot of bad experiences. Like if we survived that long, we've had a lot of bad experiences. You have to do a lot to convince me to leave my current job and come work for you. So it's a lot more work than just posting on my job board, right?
Yeah.
So I had to explain to companies, like, target all the different levels, not just for those levels. And honestly, a lot of companies just don't hire entry-level folks, I don't know how to convince the industry that you have to, like, you have to give people
a chance.
So yeah, that's the other thing that I'm like trying to convince companies that, you have to let people in from the beginning, not just shoot for only towards the end.
Yeah, you said a lot to unpack there, but I think something interesting that you said is that a lot of times, companies will want to hire diverse candidates to appear diverse, but it's like, we find out, either way that, okay, this is not where I'm supposed to be because the culture is toxic and it's not really an environment where they can see themselves growing in their career, and then they leave, and there's a retention issue, right? And I think something important that you said is that do the work first internally within your company, your organization, before bringing other people to do it or expecting them to do it, because I think that's another thing where it's like, okay, we have this diverse candidate, hopefully they'll help us with our D&I work or whatever it is, and it's like they're not paid for that. That's not why you hire them. But I'm glad that you also take that extra step to educate the hiring managers, because it's one thing obviously not to know, but it's another thing to like, okay, now so hopefully you make the best decision. And we've talked about what hiring managers, the mistakes they make. What about people who are applying, underrepresented folks? What are some mistakes when applying to these jobs or to these companies do they make when they want to get that job? And I think you mentioned that it's hard getting that entry level position. So what advice would you give in a sense, for them to find what's the best fit for them?
I think one thing I would recommend is to kind of like have like a mind shift, like a different way of thinking when you're applying for jobs, because that's what I struggled with at the beginning. I thought I work hard. I did my, I studied, I know my material, I did all of this stuff, so I expected to get a job. But when you enter the real world, when you enter, actually applying for jobs, that's not how it works. So they don't. It's a lot. It's a matter of reaching out to the right people and also conveying what you know. So a lot of us, especially in tech, we're not taught those kind of skills. Like when I started, I did not know how to tell my story. Like I didn't know. I didn't even know what kind of work I wanted to do. All I thought was I want to program. Like, that's all I knew. But I didn't know what kind of work I wanted to do. I didn't know, I didn't know how to interview, like behavioral interviewing. I didn't even know what that was, things like that. So one thing I would say is knowing how to work in tech is one thing, but learning how to actually apply to jobs is another skill that I think we all need to like invest in a little bit. So I would recommend looking more into that, like having a portfolio that conveys your information. After you have that, okay, how do I gain visibility, right? So sometimes you have to build a network, which is especially hard if you're underrepresented, because a lot of us don't have those networks. So what has worked for me, what I recommend is kind of look for people like us. So when I was starting, these kind of communities did not exist at all. But now there's so many women in tech communities. There are communities for Black people in tech. Like there's Tech Korea for Latinx folks in tech. So there's so many different communities for different groups. So I definitely would, even before you start applying for jobs, become part of communities. Make sure you have that support. I can't remember who said this, but they said, build your network before you need it. I, definitely recommend that. It becomes much harder when you're just applying for jobs and you have no network or community. So start looking for it, build that network, way before you need it. Yeah, and then one thing I've heard is I've been getting feedback is that like recruiters and engineering managers. So I have a talent directory. So I list anybody who wants to be listed on there, and recruiters and hiring managers reach out to people. And what I've been hearing is that a lot of people are actually opting out, it's because, for example, like a recruiter reaches out and the recruiter says, hey, I think you'd be great for this position. Can I talk to you? And even before chatting, apparently a lot of people are saying, I don't qualify for this. And they kind of leave it at that. So my advice is if anybody invites you for a chat, definitely chat with them.
Yeah.
Even if you don't think you qualify for that position, you never know, what that connection can bring you in the future, and you never know, maybe they will adjust the role to what you're like, especially if somebody's like, yeah, I think you will work with our company, so I want to chat with you, and people apparently are like, no, I'm not qualified for this, so I think, make sure that you are open, especially at the beginning. But if you're like already experienced and you know exactly what you want, that's different. But if you're depending on your career stage, be open to conversations.
Yeah, I mean, you said so many amazing things. I think that, the first thing that you said, like you have to have a shift in mindset, because sometimes it's like, okay, I have this degree, or, I have, whatever it is that you have, or a boot camp certificate or whatever. And it's just that, oh yeah, I hope that I get this job right away, or I hope I start at this big company. And it's like, you need to set your expectations, but also, like you said, build your network before you need it. And that's something I wish I had known in college, because like you said, I didn't have a network. I didn't know anyone who looked like me within the tech industry. And so it was definitely hard trying to figure out, okay, who do I talk to? How do I get more insight into this, career path that I'm looking to? And honestly, that's what birthed, this podcast. Now that I'm in tech, I'm like, okay, a lot of people want visibility to this world that sometimes feel like a mystery, in a sense. And I'm surprised that you said, like sometimes when recruiters do reach out to people, they feel unqualified, which may make sense at some point, but also might be, sometimes that imposter syndrome of like, oh, I don't think I can do this, or I'm not qualified. But like you said, take that chance, have that conversation. You never know what that might lead to. And even if it's not that position, something else could be created for your expertise or your level. But you never know if you don't try. So definitely try, take that leap of faith, engage with people, and definitely build your network, like you said. And then something else that I, wanted to talk about was, obviously, your community and the business you're building, all aims to diversify the tech industry. So, we've talked about, companies obviously educating themselves, doing the work internally. But what are some, maybe other changes that needs to happen from, the recruiting process or hiring process to really make the tech industry more diverse?
Mhm. I think, continue with what I had said before. I think companies really need to start internally. First chat with all the employees, their current employees, really listen to what they're saying,
Mm-hmm.
especially if they're underrepresented in tech. They've probably already been saying things.
Right.
And sometimes companies are like, they commiserate, they say, yeah, this sucks. And that's kind of where it ends, So I think companies really need to assess what their current environment is like, talk to their
Mm-hmm.
employees, see what's going on. And they have to do the hard work of changing internally. And they also should probably look at, if people are leaving, why are they leaving?
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like I've had exit interviews, but I'm pretty sure no one ever read them again after I left,
Mm-hmm.
So I think people should pay attention to like when they're like when people are leaving, why they're leaving, should we change?
Yeah.
And I think, again, it's another mindset thing that you can't say this is how things have always been, you know, so we're going to continue doing this. People really need to think about things are not working out. What are small actions that I, you know, can take to make sure that we're including everyone?
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And so, we're talking about the power of community, right? How have you experienced the power of community while building this amazing, community and business, because this is how you make your living now, right? Like it's your baby, it's your pride and joy. How have you seen, your community show up for you during this process?
Mhm. Oh gosh, it's been incredible. Like as I was saying, when I was started my tech journey, I didn't really have a community. So when I moved to DC, I really tried to, meet people like me. I tried to build, that's kind of how it started. Like for the first few subscribers I have for Coded Money and Diversify Tech are people who I met in person. Like I know them, that's kind of how it started. And when I started, my intention was to help people, but it's been incredible how the community has been helping me, because all of like I kept thinking I have to do marketing, I have to, in order to grow my business, I have to market to recruiters, I have to, you know honestly, so far I have not had to do that because my
Wow.
community has been recommending me. All of the
Mm.
job postings that I get, all of the sponsorships I've gotten has been my community telling their companies or friends about it, and it's all been them. So it's been like it's been like pretty awesome. Yeah, I'm so thankful.
Yeah, that's great. And like usually on Twitter, I see people saying, wow, thanks to Diversify Tech, like I was able to get a job, or, just, obviously singing your praises and everything that you've done. And it's beautiful just to see how that, process of giving and giving back happens when you're within community. So if you're looking for a job within tech, or like looking to switch jobs or roles or even careers, like I would definitely 100% recommend going to diversifytech.co and looking at the job board, because Vini goes through a lot to verify them and make sure that these are companies and people who are really willing to do the work. I have done the work to have a diverse company and a very welcoming environment and welcoming culture. So definitely would recommend. Right now, we're going to switch to our lightning round, where I ask you questions and you can answer in 6 words or less so we can get to know more about you. All right. So, what's the number one misconception about what you do?
Probably people think I just post links, send it through an email.
Those links. Oh man, that's definitely not true. It's definitely more work than that. Um, what is your favorite piece of technology right now?
My favorite is Netlify. I use it for my website. It's awesome.
Great. What's your favorite time management hack?
Doing less.
Doing less?
Counter- Doing less. It's
Okay.
counterintuitive, but doing less.
Okay. What is something that brings you joy right now?
Oh, my daughter. She's 2 years old, and She's a bundle of joy.
Love that. What is the best career advice you've ever received?
The best career advice. People over work is what one of my first managers always practiced and preached.
Okay. What is something that you wish you had known before joining tech?
What is? Oh gosh. I think the what I had said before, like building the community before. In any career, I think having the community really helps.
That's awesome. And lastly, what do your parents think you do for a living? Like, do they?
I don't think they know what I do. Yeah, my mom doesn't know what Twitter is. Like, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think those who work in tech, some people, their parents like get it, but for others, it's like it's still a mystery of like what's happening. Well, thank you for sharing so much. I loved having you on the podcast, and where can people find you? I've mentioned Twitter a bunch of times on the show, but where can people find you in general and Diversified Tech?
Yeah, I'm most often on Twitter, so at Veni Kunche, Venikunche. That's where I'm mostly at. And Diversified Tech, it's diversifiedtech.co. I couldn't get the .com at the beginning. It's .co. Yeah, that's Twitter is mostly where I'm at.
Awesome. And if there, hiring managers listening or even tech, CEOs, recruiters, and you're looking for a way to diversify your company, please check out the job site and please make sure you come correct because we'll find out. Benny will find out if you say, you are who you say you are. But thanks so much for being on the show. I really learned a lot. And I hope that people who are listening are encouraged, right, to join tech. There are a lot of hurdles, but we're people like you and I who are trying to help make this a more welcoming community, a more welcoming industry. And obviously, it's going to take a lot of work, but I think with all of us together, hopefully it can be done. I'm optimistic, but we'll see how it goes. So, yeah, thanks, Vinny.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.